What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Take a look at this. We've got some major stuff. Former U.S. officials have held secret Ukraine talks with prominent Russians. I'll give you the details here on that in this video. Also, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen arrives in Beijing on mission to find common ground for the U.S. and China. However, this comes as President Biden has criticized Chinese President Xi and called him a dictator, which China didn't like. So what does Janet Yellen do? Janet Yellen opens the Beijing talks by criticizing China on treatment of U.S. companies while she's in China. And this comes right after the U.S. just sent out a warning to Americans: do not travel to China. They could imprison you, as China has already done with multiple Americans. One, almost 80-year-old, maybe he was 80-year-old U.S. citizen living in China, and they've now sentenced him to life in prison there in China. Don't forget how many U.S. citizens Russia has thrown in prison here multiple times now. We have a journalist in prison there right now in Russia. Don't forget two-time Olympic gold medalist Brittany Griner. We have, it's just, Russia, China, not safe to travel to. So they send little old Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to go over there and criticize China directly to their face. Yeah, seems like a safe thing to do, right? Yeah. This also comes as the U.S. just sent one of our largest, if not the largest, U.S. aircraft carrier 150 miles right outside of China. Yeah, great message to send. And let's send little old Janet Yellen over there to criticize them directly to their face. Yes, safe travels, Janet Yellen. Safe travels. You can let me know your thoughts here on this. Yeah, this comes here as we're now getting word of former U.S. officials, and even some current U.S. officials, that have held secret Ukraine talks with prominent Russians to potentially end the war. And it's now breaking here. Take a listen to this.
Reporting by NBC News about the war in Ukraine, we've learned that a group of former U.S. officials held secret talks with the Russians back in April about bringing the conflict to an end. That's according to a group of former and current officials who were briefed on those discussions. NBC News foreign correspondent Josh Lederman broke this story. Joins us now. Josh, good to have you with us. So walk us through what you've learned about this meeting. Who was involved? What was discussed?
Well, Joe, in addition to Russia's top diplomat, Sergei Lavrov, this meeting included several former U.S. officials with deep experience from their time at the State Department, the White House, and the Pentagon, dealing not only with Russia and the former Soviet Union, but also with European issues. It also included Richard Haass, who's the outgoing president of the Council on Foreign Relations, a very prominent face of American foreign policy expertise. And we're told that on the agenda for this meeting was really finding potential off-ramps to the war in Ukraine, discussing what the reactions might be in Moscow and Washington to potential ways to move the war into ultimately peace talks that could bring an end to the hostilities. And we're told that this is one high-level example of this type of back-channel diplomacy that has been going on for some time now, involving former U.S. officials and Russians perceived to be close to the Kremlin, trying to really feel out potential solutions and engage in the kinds of conversations that are hard for the governments right now to have directly.
Yes, I mean, what's key here is these are private citizens, not in government. It's also known as track 2 diplomacy. Right. How common is this type of negotiation? Why was it preferred in this case?
Well, we should point out that these negotiations are not happening on behalf of the Biden administration. The White House is aware that these private citizens, as you pointed out, are having these discussions. They were briefed after that meeting with Lavrov in New York by the participants in that meeting about just what went on. But these citizens are doing this really on their own. And that tends to be the whole purpose of track 2 diplomacy, is that when you have private citizens who can sort of pass information to the government about what they're hearing, there is sometimes more flexibility when you have this informal, casual discussions than when you've got two governments sitting across the table for each other. Sometimes it's actually more difficult to break away from your talking points and really get to the meat of what potential solutions to tricky diplomatic issues could be. And so that is what these former U.S. officials are trying to do, really test the waters for potential solutions that could later be brought to track one, to direct negotiations involving Russia, the United States, and, of course, the government of Ukraine.
So still, Josh, we understand not everyone in the diplomatic and national security communities approved of this meeting. Why was it so divisive?
Well, the concern here, Joe, is that this could undercut the Biden administration's longstanding mantra of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, right? A lot of former officials and foreign policy experts have raised concerns about whether this at least creates the appearance of the U.S. or its intermediaries and Russia in the back room cutting deals that Ukraine is not directly involved in. And in fact, Ukrainian officials have responded to our reporting saying that they, too, have that concern, that they don't want to see anybody discussing Ukraine at a table where they do not have a seat. And so the concern is whether that could potentially undermine Ukraine's ultimate leverage in peace talks as the U.S. and its allies are really starting to show that they are eager for this war to move into a different phase where we're actually talking about peace negotiations by the end of the year, Joe.
Now, we don't know how far those negotiations went, those really that being only 60, 90 days ago. The biggest problem we have is that Russia, from what we've seen, most of theirs or all of their negotiations mean or have what we have seen is that they want Ukrainian land. They don't want to leave this war empty-handed, at least so far from what we've seen. But the farther they're pushed back, remember it took them 224 days to take Bakhmut from the Wagner Group, which did the majority of that fighting. When the Wagner Group gave that city over to the Russian military, the base army, the Wagner Group said it took them only just less than a matter of days, and they lost the city. So remember that city is only like maybe 10% inside of Ukraine. It's very far on the Eastern Front. Inside of Ukraine, it's for them to take over all of Ukraine or something like that, Russia would have to go 90% more into the whole country. So for people to think that Russia's going to win the war or something like that, they're nowhere close to that even happening. They're not even anywhere close to that. So for something like that to happen, they would have to launch nuclear weapons and, destroy the whole country. And if that happens, World War III, nuclear weapons, nuclear fallouts, and the end of days, let's hope that doesn't happen, because then we're going to see nuclear retaliation, and I don't think that's something we want to see. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here with everything happening here in and around our country and around the world. If you haven't yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below and the bell icon so you don't miss out on any new videos. Thank you for liking and sharing these videos here as well. Click here to see what just happened in all 50 states that most people don't know about. Or click here to see what is happening at Walgreens that has many people concerned. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.